The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was the sound. It wasn't just any sound, it was a deep hum, resonating through my bones, as if reality itself was unraveling around me. Then, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, panic and confusion overwhelmed me. I was in a confined, dark space, illuminated only by intermittent pulses of bluish-violet light. The air was heavy, carrying a metallic smell that burned my nostrils. The surface beneath me, whether I was lying or standing was unclear, was cold and smooth, but felt strangely alive. I tried to move, but my arms and legs were restrained by something translucent, almost like a membrane. Then came the pain, sharp and searing, like 1,000 needles piercing my skull. Captain James Braga, South American Unit, identified. Designation, prisoner. The voice echoed through the space, cold and mechanical, with a faint alien intonation, as if something were struggling to mimic human speech. My heart nearly stopped. I was aboard the Prestsky mothership. Theirs. I knew about them. Everyone did. Since the first human probes reached Prestsky in 2879, stories of the Purples, a humanoid race with violet skin and eyes glowing like liquid fire, circulated on Earth. At first there was peace, or so we were told. Then war broke out. Who started it? No one was sure. All that mattered was that the Preskians were as advanced as we were, perhaps even more so. And now, I was in the wolf's den. "Release me! I'm an officer of the Human Federation," I shouted, though my voice sounded pathetic, muffled by pain and desperation. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall and slender. Its skin was a vivid, almost iridescent shade of purple. It wore a sleek metallic suit that clung to its body, emitting faint streaks of light. Its eyes, piercing and intense, locked onto me as if it were dissecting me mentally. "Human," it said, its voice vibrating in the air itself. "You are more resilient than the others. Fascinating." Resilient? I was on the verge of collapse. But something inside me flared. Anger. Anger at the war, at my squad, at being trapped on this cursed ship. "How about you let me go and see how resilient I can really be, you purple piece of trash?" I spat the words, defiance surging through me. It merely smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Typical, I thought. It's always the smiles that make you realize how screwed you are. As I tried to assess my situation, I noticed something else. The hum was back, quieter now, almost like a murmur in the back of my mind. It wasn't just a sound, it felt as though the entire ship was alive, communicating, scheming. "Why am I here?" I asked, trying to mask my fear. The alien stepped closer. Its movements were fluid, almost boneless. It crouched to meet my gaze and spoke with an air of superiority. "You are more than a prisoner, human. You are an experiment." My mind raced. An experiment? Before I could respond, it touched a panel near the membrane, restraining me. The barrier dissolved instantly, dropping me to the ground. The impact was harsh, but the relief of being free outweighed the pain. Still, I knew I was far from safe. "Let's test your resilience," it said, as the room began to transform. The walls contorted, sprouting spikes and blades that slowly emerged. The temperature soared, and the air grew heavier. It felt like being trapped inside a living furnace. "Good luck, Captain Braga," it said before vanishing, seemingly merging with the environment itself. My instincts took over. I scanned the room, searching for anything, a weapon, an exit. The hum was louder now, nearly deafening. Then I saw it, a small circular opening in the left corner, barely big enough for me to squeeze through. There was no time to think. I started running. The floor seemed to fight against me, rippling beneath my feet. Every step was a battle, but I had to keep going. Reaching the opening, I threw myself into it, scraping my arms and legs in the process. The darkness inside was absolute, but for the moment, I was alive. The sound of metallic footsteps echoed behind me. They were coming. The duct was narrow, but there was no other choice. I crawled as the sound of metallic footsteps echoed behind me, growing closer with each passing second. The claustrophobic sensation was suffocating, and the air inside was even more metallic and bitter. I had no idea where the tunnel led, but anywhere was better than that living torture chamber. Suddenly, the duct ended in an abyss. A vast void stretched below me, illuminated by a greenish glow from structures that appeared to be floating in midair. I had reached the central chamber of the mothership. the heart of the enemy. The hum that had tormented me was now deafening, but there was something more to it, a sinister, almost hypnotic melody. "You cannot escape, human. There is no way out." The alien's voice echoed from every direction, as if it were part of the ship itself. I was surrounded. On the other side of the chamber, I spotted something that gave me a glimmer of hope. An escape pod. Small, rounded in design, and brimming with energy. But to reach it, I would have to cross the entire chamber, navigating narrow platforms connected by shifting walkways. It was a minefield of danger. "Why me? What do you want from me?" I shouted, trying to buy time. "You are more than you think," the voice replied, now sounding almost satisfied. "Humans are fools. Your species and mine have more in common than you imagine. But while you fight amongst yourselves, we prepare." 2 Preskians emerged from the tunnel behind me, armed with spears glowing with an intense blue energy. There was no time to think. I leaped onto the first platform, which wobbled under my weight. They followed. The chamber felt alive, reacting to my movements. The platforms shifted, rising and falling, while beams of energy cut through the air like laser bolts. Each step was a race against death. The escape pod was close, but the floor was literally vanishing beneath my feet. Finally, I reached the last platform, directly connected to the escape pod. Behind me, the Preskians were advancing, and now there were more of them. A shot grazed past my head, nearly throwing me off balance. With one final effort, I hurled myself into the pod and sealed the hatch. The controls were entirely alien, but I had no choice. I touched the most obvious panel, and the pod began to vibrate, the engines roaring like thunder. The ceiling above started to open, revealing the black void of space. Then, I heard the voice again, this time resonating directly inside my mind. "You think you've escaped, but this is only the first phase. You are the key to our victory." Before I could process what that meant, an intense light filled the chamber. The pod was hurled into space, and the last thing I saw was the mothership exploding in a blinding flash of light that seemed to swallow the stars. When I regained consciousness, I was orbiting Prestsky. The pod appeared to have an autopilot system, guiding me to one of the planet's moons. As I landed, I stumbled out, still disoriented. But I wasn't alone. A human figure emerged from the shadows. He was identical to me. "Welcome to the plan, Captain," he said with a sinister smile. "You thought you were fighting for your species, but it was all part of our game. We were always brothers." Before I could react, I felt a searing pain in my chest. I looked down to see him holding an alien blade. My reflection faded as my strength left me. "Thank you for paving the way," he said as my world went dark. "The war is only beginning."